After being dead for many leagues now, Cold Out is finally back and it is better than ever. Before I say anything else, if you just want to try this build out and not watch the video, I've left trade links to every single item that you need to buy and timestamps to each item's crafting guide, so you can skip right over to that and get everything set up yourself. However, the build does have very specific setups and crafts in place to make everything work, so I do recommend watching it to the end. So, that aside, this was originally supposed to just be my league starter, but it just felt so good to play Cold Dot again that I wanted to see how far I could take this while still staying budget friendly. Even if you are incredibly unlucky, you can have this entire build set up and running for under 30 divs at the end game level, and it can do just about everything. So, Uber bosses, check. Tier 17s, check. Heavily juiced Risk Scarab Tier 17 Abyss farming, check. Simulacrums, check. Blight Ravaged maps, Epilepsy. It can do everything while also being incredibly tanky and letting you have a nice, comfortable playstyle, knowing that very few things in any map are ever going to kill you. However, a few disclaimers. This build is not a single button build at all. There are multiple buttons to press, but that is only for very, very juicy rare monsters, or pinnacle bosses, or tier 17 bosses. For a majority of normal tier 17s and normal mapping, it's just blink, vortex, or dash, vortex, and nothing else. Most of the time, you won't even be casting anything. You'll just be wild cold snapping and walking through packs. Secondly, this is not an immortal build, even though it might seem like it. Certain combinations of tier 17 mods can break it, so I have done my best to make sure the build has multiple defense layers, so that even if one or two defenses are cut, the entire build doesn't brick. So for example, the Trickster Immortal builds, those builds completely brick if you roll Cannot Leech on the map. Some other builds, like Gladiator builds, completely get bricked if you roll Reduced Chance to Block on the map. Cannot regen mana, or many other things completely brick many different builds. However, for this one, even if you roll can reduce chance to block, we still have evasion. Even if you roll no regen, we still have recovery. Even if you roll no leech, it's all fine. But if you roll multiple combinations of those modifiers, like no regen and like bloodstained saw blades, so not having any regen and heavy degen is bad. Throughout my testing of running around 50 Risk Scarab maps and getting a bunch of random different modifiers on it, I only bricked one map, so that was a good sign. Last disclaimer, this build does utilize a cheap mercenary setup, so if you don't have a decent mercenary, or if for some reason you don't want to interact with them, that is fine. It is not needed for the build to function. It's just way better if you do use one. In this video, I'll be going over every single thing that you need in order to play this build for yourself. You'll know exactly what to do, what not to do, as well as the playstyle itself, so you can gauge if you actually want to try it or not. At the end of this video, there is a whole crafting guide showing you how to craft each piece of gear yourself in case you need any help. If you don't feel like watching, you can again skip right to the timestamps in the description, grab the items, and start crafting them yourself and figure out the POE on your own. With all that out of the way, let's head in game and talk about the gear. Alright, so here we are, we're in game, and I'm going to go over all of this stuff very quickly because I'm going to be talking about most of these items again anyway in the crafting guide. So, summarize. The weapon is going to be a level of all cold spell skills with minion damage and damage over time multiplier. This, it will not have +1 level of all spell skills. That is a very expensive craft, and I got extremely lucky making this while I was trying to make the one that's in the POB. None of the showcases were used for this one. None of the damage numbers in the POB are used with this scepter, so don't worry about it. This is not going to be the one you'll use. You will use just cold spell skills, minion damage, and damage over time. That's it. The shield, however, if you do get this, if you hit all spell skills, good for you. The shield, increased chance to block, and recovery when you block. That's it. Those are the only two modifiers that you want on the shield. Other than that, any extra ES, any extra res, any extra cold damage, all cold spell skill gems, all the big plus. You need one open suffix for suppression, and that's it. So the body armor, the gloves, and the boots. All three of these are crafted in the exact same way. It's just gloves and boots, pure ES bases. You use ES essences until you get all of your prefixes, and then you can either Eldritch, Annul, and Exalt the suffixes, or Eldritch Chaos the suffixes. It doesn't matter. You just need one open suffix for suppression and as much ES as you can possibly get. Same thing with the boots. ES essences until you can get as much ES as possible. You do not need an open suffix on these. You ideally want an open prefix to craft movement speed, or just get movement speed on it naturally and craft on the percent ES. That works as well, although you will have less ES that way. Body armor, this is going to be the hardest piece to craft because you do need to get suppression as one of the modifiers on this. So the way to craft this would just be get your body armor, ideally get a high quality body armor and necrotic armor, and use ES essences until you get good prefixes. And then you can either stop with the prefixes and use Eldritch Chaos Orbs to roll for your suppression, or you can just keep on rolling with your essences until you hit suppression. You need a minimum of 16 suppression on your body armor. Minimum. It can be higher than this. It cannot be lower than this. It has to be 16. Now, the helmet. This is kind of hilarious. So, this is a 1C helmet with a insane corruption. This is giving me +4 to level of all my gems, 50 cold dot multiplier, and socketed concentrate effect as one of the support gems. So I have Cold Snap and Creeping Frost here. So thanks to that implicit, a level 21 gem is going all the way up to level 30. However, this does not exist on trade anymore, and it's not in the POE either, so don't worry. So your options are the following. You can either get a Rhyme Gaze with a single implicit corruption. This is good, and this is very cheap. It's like 3C, 4C, 5C. It's great. Well, however, your upgrade from that and the thing that you'll be using and the thing that's in the POB are these helmets here. They're very easy to craft. Do not buy these off of trade. They're very expensive on trade. It is a deterministic craft for 5 div. You get an elder base with concentrated effect. You get a normal Archdemon crown with nothing, no influence. You slam a Shaper Orb on it to give it Shaper influence. And then you roll Reforged Cold with the Harvest Bench until you hit Hypothermia, level 20. And then you just use an Awakener Orb, which costs 3 div, to slam the two bases together. And boom, you have a level 20 Conk Effect, level 20 Hypothermia on a base. You do not care what the suffixes are. You do not care what the other prefixes are because it doesn't matter on this base. But you do want one open prefix so that you can craft on the level of AoE gems. So I made this helmet 5 times. Actually, 6 times. And 5 out of 6 times, I had 4 out of 6 times I had an open prefix. 1 out of those 6 times, I had all my prefixes full, and I annulled one, and I got it. And then 1 time, I annulled it, and I missed, and the base bricked. However, even if you brick the base, I was still able to sell that Shaper Elder Archdemon crown for 6 div. Because people are dumb, they don't realize they can just make it yourself. So that is why craft these yourself. It'll cost like 5 div, but it'll be a massive damage boost compared to this. Massive. So that aside, amulets and the rings and the belt. Belt I'll go over in the end because it sort of links into the flasks. So the amulet, this is a deterministic craft, minus the resistances. Everything else on this, the 2 skill gems, is purely deterministic. You just get yourself a base with +1 level of all skills. You split the base so that the prefixes are secluded, they're isolated, so it's just 1 level of all skill gems with whatever suffixes, and then you prefixes cannot be changed. You scour so that you only have a base with level of all skills and nothing else, and then you prefixes can have up to 2 crafted mods. Prefixes cannot be changed, cannot roll attack, and boom, you reforge. You don't reforge, you remove, add, hold on the harvest bench, and boom, you have +1 skill, +1 cold. It is expensive. It'll cost you like 8 divs total, I think, for the juice and the crafting bench cost to make it. However, it is cheaper than anything of this caliber that you'll find on trade, especially with an open prefix for increased percent ES and an open suffix for you to craft on decks or potentially exalt slam something good. So here I was able to exalt slam tier 1 fire res. You can exalt slam this a few times if you want to. If you exalt slam twice and you don't get what you want, you can just do prefixes cannot be changed, scour, and then exalt slam again until you get something good. I did use a Crusader exalt on this because I was trying to get percent increased ES as one of the suffixes. I wasn't able to get it, and I wasn't going to keep trying. So there it is. If that was confusing, don't worry. In the crafting section, I'll show you exactly how to make this. So the rings. Ring, incredibly easy. You need an unset ring because we just don't have the sockets otherwise. And you can either get a fractured strength, fractured int, or fractured ES. And whatever fracture you get, you just use a different essence type to get the other thing. So for example, here I had fractured strength because strength is the best to fracture because we need exactly 55 strength to be on the fracture. And then when we make it up to 66, we get exactly, well, I have a little bit more thanks to a jewel or something, I think. But in reality, my minimum strength requirement is 98. And before I had that jewel, thanks to this strength fracture, I had 99 strength. So keep that in mind. So besides that, strength fracture, use ES essences until you hit int, or use int essences until you hit ES. Doesn't matter. I recommend using int essences until you hit tier 1 ES. It doesn't matter what the other prefixes. It is nice to have an open suffix because you will need to craft all attributes to meet your dex requirement in the end anyway, because dex is a massive pain for this build. The other ring doesn't matter at all. It's just get an anathema, get this with the highest int possible because it's cheap, and highest cast speed too because again, it's cheap. That's it. So now this is where we come to the belt. This is going to be the somewhat more complicated thing to craft outside of the body armor. So on this belt, you get yourself a crystal belt with no influence, and then you slam a Crusader orb on this. Oh, trade. Never mind, he ignored me. So again, you get yourself a crystal belt, you slam in a Crusader orb on this to give a Crusader influence, and then you will use ES essences again until you hit 2 different modifiers. You need 2 of them. The first one is going to be percent increased maximum ES, and the second one is going to be one of 2 different mods. You either want increased flash charges gained, or you want the one on this one, which is increased fast effect duration. So regardless of what modifier you get, you need it to be at least like 25% increased flask effect or 25% increased flash charges gained. Here, I hit tier 1% increased maximum ES, but I only hit tier 5 flash charges gained. So I had to craft the remainder. You can craft it. It's completely fine. It works. It just doesn't work as nicely because then you can't craft on dex and int. And if you can't craft on extra int, you won't have that with extra ES. So if you see the difference here, so this belt has 10% increased maximum ES, and this has 18, and you'll see the ES difference here is only 100 because of the fact that I have int on this one and I don't have int on this one. So you just keep on using essences until you hit some sort of flask mod and a high tier of percent increased maximum ES. Our resistance on this is good. It's great if you can get a res on it. I exalt slam that tier 1 res again. I don't know what's happening with my exalt slams, but yeah. So that's it. So about the flasks next. So if you take a look at my defenses, yeah, they're not looking too good. That is because thanks to this belt with the increased flash charges gained and the implicits on the body armor with flask gain and charge every 3 seconds, along with the secret reason why we don't have a 5th slot, we can get full uptime on all of our flasks and be decently overcapped as well thanks to this. And none of these flasks will ever run out. They will just immediately keep on reusing themselves over and over again. And the way you will check this, I'll talk about that more in the POB, but there is a way you can check if you have 100% uptime on your flask or not. So on the flasks, the main and most important one is going to be the prefixes. So each of your flasks need to have increased charge recovery as a prefix, and this needs to be a minimum of 45%. If you get a higher roll of your increased flash charges gained or increased flash duration on your belt, then you can settle with a lower number on that prefix. The exact numbers of this can only be determined when you put your flasks into the POB and you check. So I can't say. But by default, if you're somewhere around 27, 28% flask mods on the belt, then you will need around 45% minimum to get this to work. So the suffixes on these are very flexible. You can sort of just take whatever you want, but you do need one suffix of additional elemental resistances during effect. Otherwise, it won't work. So if I take off my fire res flask, you can see that I'm just barely overcapping on the other two resistances without that suffix. And if you get hit by one scorch or one, I don't know, elemental weakness curse in the map, your resistances will go underneath max and you'll just start taking extra damage for no reason. So that's why we have the additional res. The other another trade. Oh, and I'm back and I'm 30C richer. Anyway, the other suffixes on these items are very flexible. However, I do recommend that you get one with an open suffix that you can craft either rarity on when you're trying to farm gold, or you ideally craft on regenerate 3% of life per second. Both of these crafts are available at your crafting bench for a few glass blowers baubles, so don't worry about that. And the other suffix, I like spell damage leech yes. This makes it so when you're fighting bosses that have a lot of degens, like Shaper Beams or Maven Pools or something along those lines, then the spell damage leech here can help you just stand in those degens and not worry about it. If you, I don't know if my showcase show that, but anyway, however, if you don't want that, if you just don't care about the leech part, you can instead have increased movement speed during Flask effect or increased evasion rating or reduced effective curses or one of those things. So outside of that, let's say you don't want to use one of these flasks, you miss your Quicksilver flask of movement speed, right? What do you do then? Well, if you have a certain res that's overcapped, for example, you can take off one of those flasks. Like, for example, I don't think that there's that much lightning damage in most maps. It's mostly fire and cold. So sometimes I take off my lightning flask and I just replace it with the Quicksilver flask if I want to go fast. If I'm not farming something that's super juice, then this is the flasks. If I want to farm gold, I just replace this with a gold flask over here instead. Or if I ever run into a cannot regen mana map, then I just put on an enduring mana flask and that solves the problem instead. So, but for the most part, this build is meant to be used in very, very juiced tier 17 farming. And in those maps, you're not going fast anyway. You're waiting for the abyss to spawn monsters, or you're waiting for your strong boxes to open, or you're waiting for your ritual to spawn 1,000 rogue exiles, whatever it might be. So it's good for that. You don't need much speed there anyway. And I'm pretty sure that's everything for the items. If I've forgotten something, please just ask me about it in the comments. But now we are going to go over the mercenaries gear very quickly because this is also pretty important. So the mercenary, in our case, gives us quite a lot of damage and quite a lot of quality of life for the build that we will otherwise not have if this guy didn't exist. So starting with the belt, I'm sure all of you know this by now. Nearby enemies convert 25 of their physical damage to fire. This makes Fizz hits easier to tank, Fizz degens easier to tank. Everything related to Fizz, it's easier if your Merc is just standing near the enemy, which he will be most of the time anyway. So besides that, I have a glove. This is from giving him a bunch of different resistances, but also he has 20% chance to extinguish enemies on hit from the implicit. Extinguished enemies can't inflict elemental ailments. So this makes me pseudo ailment immune as long as my Merc hits them first with a 20% chance to hit, and he's using Bladefall, which hits 1,000 times a second. So he has quite a large chance of just extinguishing the enemy, and then they can't put any ailments on them. This doesn't work all the time. I've seen myself being ignited or scorched or something or the other sometimes. So it's not 100%, but there's nothing else I can put on this anyway. So yeah, and the other one is hinder because why not? The wand, this gives me spells have Felling Strike, so free Felling Strike. The shield gives increased effect of non-cursed auras from your skills. Don't read the line about the minions. It's not about the minions. It's about from your skills on yourself and your allies. Shaper's Seed. This is very important. It's 1C unique that gives us 4% life regen, which converts to ES regen, and 80% increased mana regen. Mana regen is a very big issue. If the Mercs didn't exist, we would need to have mana regen on our gear. I even have it on my Amulet Implicit because it just feels way nicer to have it some extra mana regen. Outside of that, there are the rings. The rings are mostly just for resistances. However, there are other options for these rings that I'm going to explain. So when you're doing pinnacle bosses, like uber bosses, you will be using 2 worm rings. Okay? These worm rings spawn a worm every 2 seconds. And the reason why that's very important is because of this line on Cold Snap. I'm sorry about the massive wall of text on screen, but just read the part over there in the last part of the green turquoise text that says, enemies that die while in the area have a chance to grant frenzy charges, and that is a 25% chance. And if you have Val Cold Snap on, it is a 100% chance that you get frenzy charges when you kill an enemy that is inside your Cold Snap area. So that is important because if I walk on over to my Merc, you can see there's just there's just worms everywhere. Right now, if I just cast Cold Snap, here's my Cold Snap. Oops. Cast Cold Snap on this. Got 1. There's more. I got 2. And now they'll keep spawning on around him inside the Cold Snap area. And that basically just gives me almost full uptime on my frenzy charges as long as they keep spawning and I don't get incredibly unlucky like I just did right now. Hilarious. So that gives you near permanent frenzy charge uptime, even when there's no extra bosses to kill. That is why frenzy charges are ticked on in the POB. So it's important. However, if you are mapping, you will always have frenzy charges because you're killing a ton of monsters in the map. So yeah, this ring makes it so this Merc steals endurance charge or frenzy charges or power charges from map bosses or anything in the map. So if you roll monsters gain endurance charges on it, or monsters gain frenzy on it, or something, you can just slap this ring on him, and then he still steals those charges away. So there you go. You can also get this ring with the Grace Aura Implicit, so that's even better. Same thing with the Shaper Seed. You can get these with Grace Aura Implicit on the Implicit, and that is just better that way. However, if you do not have endurance charges on the map and you want to swap things around for min-maxing, you can give him a Call of the Void instead. This makes it so that all of his damage chills, and enemies chilled by those hits lessen their damage dealt by half of the chill effect. Now, I don't know specifically if that last line means that only the chill applied by the Merc, or can it also be the chill applied by me? Right? I'm not sure about this. It does say enemies chilled by your hits lessen their damage by half the chill effect. So if he chills something and then I chill the same mob after that with a stronger chill, does that mean it technically stacks because it's my chill on top of his chill? I don't know. I wasn't able to find anything about this on any website or any forum link, and I tried to test it, but I couldn't really notice much because I'm too tanky anyway. So yeah, if someone knows about this or can figure this out, let me know in the comments. So besides that, the 3 most important gear pieces are these 3 right here. So I'm going to start with why they're important. So first up is the helmet. This is a very cheap helmet to make. Don't try to buy this. It's super cheap. Same thing as the Archdemon crowns that we made over here. Exactly the same. You get yourself a Shaper base and you reforge cold until you hit nearby enemies have -9 to cold resistances. Oh, sorry, that's Redeemer base. And the Shaper one is alteration spam until you hit nearby enemies take 6 increase elemental damage, and then you slam them both together with an Awakener Orb, and then you will most likely have 1 open prefix because those are both suffixes, and then you will craft on level of Sognet AoE gems. Why are you doing that? He has no gems. Well, we don't care about that part. We actually care about the line underneath that, which says increased area of effect. That is all I care about. Same thing on the gloves. I gave him increased AoE because I want the AoE of all of the Grace Aura, of the Aspect Aura, of his Blade Vortex, or anything that the AoE can interact with, because he doesn't do much damage anyway, so I just want him for the extra utility that he brings, and that's all. I don't even know if these affect his AoE much, but who cares? Besides that, the body armor and the boots. We are using Aspect of the Spider because this gives you a 4% increased damage taken by enemies, which is 4% more damage, essentially. So each stat gives you 4% more damage and makes enemies have reduced movement speed. You don't care about the movement speed, but you do care about that increased damage. So get a Merc with Aspect of the Spider, and then you get these boots that makes it so you can apply an additional spider web. So instead of having this up to 16% more damage, it gives you up to 20% more damage. And then you use this body armor, which says enemies affected by your spider webs deal 10% reduced damage and have 10%, negative 10% to all resistances. So that's minus 10 res, and that's 10% reduced damage. A shit ton of utility, all from this one little thing. And you can very reliably know that if your Merc is alive, he is going to be applying his spider webs to everything around him. These aren't like cheap uniques. I think this is a div. This is like 50, 60C, but for the amount of utility this gives you, it's incredible. Now, what do you do if you don't have a Merc that has Aspect of the Spider or any of this? Right, well, you have other options as usual, but I would highly recommend to get a Merc that has at least either Grace or Zealotry or Benevolence. Those are your three auras, so you need one of them to be on the Merc. I would recommend to have Grace on yourself, and either Malevolence or Zealotry on your Merc, because you can scale the effects of Malevolence and Zealotry quite a lot with these items and give yourself way more damage. Getting a little bit of extra Grace effect just doesn't really do that much. However, I've just been too lazy to try to grind another Merc. Besides that, if you can't get one with Aspect of the Spider, or if you get a different Merc altogether with Grace, then what should you look for? Well, first thing, do not get a Merc with any sort of curses. Frostbite, conductivity, any curse at all will overwrite your curses, and you do not want that. So no curses. No curses. Okay, no curses. Besides that, you can just get whatever else you want. You can get a Merc that uses a two-handed weapon, and you can give him a Kingmaker. You can give him a Dying Breath. You can, instead of this helmet, you can give him a Leer Cast, but I do recommend giving him this helmet. Like this, you can have a helmet like this with any base type so that any Merc can use this. Be sure that you check what items your Merc can use. So my Merc is a Dex Int Merc. That means he can use any Dex item, any Int item, or any Dex plus Int item, but he can't use anything that has Strength on it. So that's how it works. If your Merc is a Strength Merc, he can use everything that has Strength. If he's pure Dex, he can use everything that requires Dex, even if it's hybrid basis. And if he's a hybrid, then he can use any of these two. But he cannot even touch anything that isn't mentioned here. So I'm pretty sure that about covers the Merc. There are no real good abilities that you can get on your Merc, so that's irrelevant. Just look for the auras. Aspect of the Spider is the best. So once you find this, you're golden. Body armor, we can't use the negative lightning res body armor, so we are limited on that. You can give him a Garb of the Ephemeral to make it so all of you and your Merc are immune to slows and immune to crits. You can put on Amulet Influence here for more aura effect. There's the options that you can place here, but this is the best one. So with that out of the way, let's now quickly talk about the gem links, because I actually forgot about to talk about them. So very quick. It's getting too long. Gloves. This is our curses. Our auras. We have Discipline, Malevolence, and Zealotry. Your Merc can also have Discipline as well instead of Grace. I would actually recommend putting Discipline over Grace, because again, more ES is better than more evasion. And then in 1 and Lightning 3, so that we can fit all our auras in. In our boost, this is where all of our golems are: Stone, Flame, Chaos, and Summon Lightning. In our shield, we have Summon Carrying Golem of Words. I'll explain about the words in just a moment. Frost Blink of Wintry Blast. Now, the reason for Frost Blink is that we can just keep spamming it. Let me summon my Lightning Golem here so that I don't go extremely slow. So we can keep on spamming Frost Blink as a means of travel. This does make it so we don't have to move much. However, if you don't want to use that, then we can set up into Flame Dash instead. It's completely up to you. So Flame Dash also works. Frostblink also works. Flame Dash has a cooldown. Frostblink has no cooldown. So it just depends. Frostblink of Wintry Blast is a more expensive alt quality gem, so remember that. But anyway, and then we have Temp Chains and the rest of our curses. So a little bit about these curses. So we do have to manually cast all of them. Now, if you want, you can automate these. You can, right? So instead of temp, you can remove temp chains. You can remove temp chains, and then you can put all 3 curses into your boot instead, and then you can put Arcanist Brand in there, and then you just have to cast Arcanist Brand, and it'll just keep on casting your curses for you on bosses, because you just have to use your curses on bosses and like very, very tanky stuff anyway. However, the reason why I use self-casting curses, I'm gonna like sneak into the passive tree here just to pull this one gem out. So why do we self-cast curses? This. Immune to all action speed slows if you've cast temp chains in the past 10 seconds, and cold exposure on hit if you've cast frostbite in the last 10 seconds. So cold exposure on hit is very difficult to get for this build because we aren't really speccing into any of the cold damage nodes on the passive tree. I know that's very weird to say a cold dot build with no cold damage passives. Why? I'll go over that on the passive tree, but just know that if you don't get this here, then you have to either get it on your glove implicit, and we need the suppression implicit, so we can't do that. You can get it through a redeemer suffix on your wand or scepter, but that's also not gonna work out. So this is the easiest way to gain cold exposure, and cold exposure is a massive damage boost, especially when you're playing Elementalist. You get an extra negative 25% all cold res reduction when you use exposure, so that's that. And what about the action speed one? The action speed one is equally as important because it makes like 6 or 7 different modifiers on tier 17 maps completely nullified. Drowning orbs that slow you down, now they can't. Reduced action speed for every skill you cast recently, now that won't happen. That one Citadel boss that reduces your action speed, it won't. The Fortress boss that fires his beams that reduce your action speed, not gonna happen. What else? Like, there's more. There's the Shaper beams that reduce your speed. That won't happen. There's certain mobs in tier 17s that reduce your speed. That won't happen. Any sort of chill or slowing effect won't work. Delirium has a ton of action speed slows. Those won't be affected on you either. Nothing will ever slow you down below base value. So the only thing that can slow you down are creeping vines that Maven applies onto you if she is following you around in tier 17. And if you're using Frostbling or Flame Dash, you can instantly break those vines apart anyway, just by one tap. So it's a massive, massive quality of life boost using this one gem, Jewel. So I would highly recommend to just cast your own curses. It's okay. It's okay. If you have to play Path of Exile 2 in a few months anyway. So you have to be ready to press some buttons, okay? So I'll go over exactly the most efficient way to do this so that you don't feel like you're actually pressing like 1,000 buttons. So besides that, we have our actual damage links. So first off with the Body Armor Vortex, Hypothermia, Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge is a little annoying because if you see here, I have to cast my Vortex twice to get it up, and then I have to like keep on casting it 3 times in order to keep it up, and then my mana ends up like depleting sometimes during this. And if my Merc is dead, then absolutely without the Shaper Seed regen, Arcane Surge is hard. And this also makes it so I can't really like move around much because my Arcane Surge will fall off and I have to keep on casting. But that's okay because we're so tanky anyway. We're not playing the usual cold dot way where we just put our cold dots down, then we walk away. No, we're just standing there and we're spamming this. So the hit DPS from this, which is actually quite high as well. So we're just actually getting a lot of DPS just from constantly clicking this ability. So Arcane Surge isn't that bad, especially if you get a mana regen implicit on your amulet. Like this implicit made doing this like 1,000 times better. So, and then the helmet, Creeping Frost, Wild Cold Snap, Cruelty, and Bone Chill. That's it. You do have 2 Awaken gems here, Awaken Fifth Affliction and Awaken Control Destruction. These are both very, very cheap, so don't worry about like having expensive Awaken gems in here. I think Control Destruction is a div, and this is like 50C. So nothing in this entire setup is going to be particularly expensive. All of these bases are cheap, All of the ways to craft them are cheap, just essences. The only expensive thing is going to be the Amulet Craft, where that's an actual like meta craft. So, and the Helmet Craft, it's also like technically a meta craft. Besides that, though, everything super easy, super simple. Okay, now, really quickly to talk about the ideal skill rotation and how to use your curses so everything feels super smooth. So, Vortex had a duration of 3 seconds, while your Cold Snap and your Creeping Frost, both of these have a duration of 6.5 seconds. So, when you walk up to a boss, when you're, let's say, imagine the pinnacle boss is spawning, he's doing his little animation and he's spawning in front of you, right? So, as he spawns, you just want to stand there and brace yourself. Once he spawns in, you press control, and that's where you put all of your different curses in this exact order. I like this order. You can put it in any order you want, but I like this one. So Q is temp chains, and W is punishment. I also forgot to mention what punishment even is because most people don't know. Punishment makes it so enemies take 60% increased damage when they reach low life, and low life is less than 50% health. So when the enemy reaches 50% HP, they start taking 60% more damage from everything. Right? So that is mentioned in the POE. It is estimated to be 30% instead of 60, so that it sort of like approximates how it would be at max health. So it's punishment, frostbite, and elemental weakness. So as the boss spawns, the moment it spawns, you do one of these. You just piano your QWER, so boom, 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 boom. Right, you just press all of those in. It's less than a second, and then you get all of that done. And all of these curses last for over 16 seconds, except for temp chains. But since temp chains isn't really a damage curse, you can just sometimes ignore this or just not use it. So these are your 3 main damage curses. And I would argue that punishment, you can technically just skip this as well and just press these 2 curses. Those are the main damage ones, and punishment you can press when the enemy is less than 50% health. However, it does also debilitate the enemy, which is 10% less damage dealt, so they just deal less damage to you. But if you don't care about that, then just don't care about it. Just use these 2. But outside of that, once you're done placing your curses, you will ideally only have to use your curses once, unless the enemy is insanely tanky. The moment you see your curse icons on top of the enemy disappear, that's when you need to recast them. Otherwise, you're good to go. You never have to recast them. The only other time you have to recast them, however, is every 10 seconds for frostbite, so that you can keep on applying cold exposure. But that's it. But even then, cold exposure lasts for 4 seconds, and frostbite lasts for like 15 seconds. So by the time your frostbite runs out, your cold exposure will also have run at the same time, so you can sort of circumvent that. Okay, enough rambling about that. What skills do you use and how? Well, like this. Creeping Frost, Cold Snap, and then just spam vortexes. Okay, and then usually, again, if I start this again, Creeping Frost, Cold Snap, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 seconds pass, and you can see the Cold Snap and Creeping Frost area disappeared. So you can sort of gauge this by checking how many vortexes can you cast before those disappear. So roughly 13 to 14 vortexes can be cast before you have to recast your Creeping Frost and Cold Snap. So you can sort of estimate this, but just like you just keep on doing this, and then you don't have to min-max. You can just like recast in the middle anyway if you want to. It doesn't really matter. But if you want to like super min-max, then you have to like count how many vortexes you're doing in your head. I don't do this. I absolutely do not do this. I just do boom, boom, and then I just start hitting vortexes, and then randomly when I feel like it, I just go do that again, and I just keep on continuing my vortex. So it's not technically a many button build. It's just this, and then you just do this, and then more of that. Right? That's all. Again, that's only for bosses, and only for bosses and very tanky monsters, like when they're popping out of abysses. However, otherwise, this is the playstyle. This is with Frostblink or Wintry Blast, like you literally never have to move. Or if you're going to use Flame Dash, playstyle looks something like this.
When I'm ready,
You can do that twice, and then your flame dash sort of like fires the cooldown, so you have to then walk around a little bit and then do it again, and then walk a little bit and do it again. We do have onslaught, so that does make walking and casting more faster. So yeah, so that's all for the playstyle. That's all for the gem link. That's all for the Merc gear. That's all for my gear. Now a quick note about the passive tree and then the Pantheons after that. So passive tree. This is already so insanely long. I am sorry. So passive tree. Real quick, timeless jewel. We use a brutal restraint with Balbala. Balbala gives us the traitor keystone, and this is the glorious, overwhelming secret that so many streamers just have this empty flask slot. Why is it empty? Who knows? Well, now you know. You keep this one empty flask slot so that you can gain 4 charges per empty flask every 5 seconds. This doesn't seem like a lot to most people. 4 charges every 5 seconds when your flask needs like 50. How is that going to give you full uptime? Well, just it does. Okay, with these 4 charges, plus the extra charge here, plus the increased flash charges gained here, and the prefix for increased charge recovery, we have full uptime on all our flasks. So I turned these on like, I don't know how long ago, and they're still just automatically going. I never press these again. Every single map we go into, you just press these once at the start of the map, and they will keep on looping for the entire map. The only bricks that you will have in a map is if you click an Eldritch Altar that gives you like reduced charges or charge drain or something. Don't click those altars. That's the only way you completely brick yourself, because you will go negative res and just die. So that's why we use Timeless Jewel, Brutal Restraint, Balbala. Same thing with the Brutal Restraint. It gives you dex on all of your travel nodes. So travel nodes give you 2 dex. Your small notables give you 4 dex. Your big notables give you an actual passive, an actual extra stat. So the best stats here are going to be increased effective non-cursors from your skills. So I have that here, I have that here, and then over here I went for 1 dex node, because yes, even with this, even with the dex from this, even with the dex from like all these increased attributes and the dex in here and the all attributes here, we still needed more dex. Yeah, we need more dex. So about 20 dex over here, and that is it. That fixes your dex. You don't need dex anywhere else. So all of your decks, there's no actual dex rolls on any gear except for the gloves. You're going to argue, oh, you have dex here. Does that mean I need to get dex over here? No, not really. So if you need more dex, you can instead craft on dex in it. A flat dex here instead of all attributes, and that'll fix your dex problem. The only reason I crafted all attributes here was because I just wanted more int. That's it. Besides that, we have a possible escape with Supreme Ego. So this is also very important. We are using this to be able to allocate both of these nodes here. Now, why are we allocating a small reservation efficiency node? Well, without this node, you can see that I will not be able to cast Vortex, because Vortex has an insanely high mana cost, because I've juiced its levels up so high that I can't cast even with 121 mana. I cannot cast my Vortex. That is why I need this node. And also Charisma for even more mana reservation efficiency. However, and my anoint is Innervate in that case. If you do not find it, even though there's like 100 of these on trade for like 2 div each, if you can't buy these, if somehow every single one of these jewels is gone, it's completely okay, because you have other options as well. You can either get in the possible escape around Magebane, and they take these 2 nodes for suppression, and then anoint Charisma, and then get reservation efficiency on one of your jewels as a modifier on the jewel, even like the 3% mana reservation efficiency that you can get as I think a prefix or a suffix, even that should be enough to give you enough mana to cast Vortex. So you can get it here, you can get it here, you can go and get it around, where is it? Wild Pact, and you can take Courage. So anything at all that'll give you like up to 14 to 15% suppression. However, if you do go for Magebane or Conduit, it'll only give you 14 suppression, and you do need 15 suppression to be suppress capped. But 99 suppression, it's a budget option, but I would recommend to go for the Wild Pact one instead if Supreme Ego is done, because this gives you 15% suppression if you've hit recently, and for most of the time you will be hitting constantly anyway, because it's not with attack, it's just any hit. So you're hitting with Vortex, you're hitting with Creeping Frost, you're hitting with Cold Snap, and you're hitting with Frost Blink or Flame Dash. So is there anything else about jewels there? No. Now we're going to talk about the cluster jewels. So we do use 3 of them. Most of our passive points are spent on cluster jewels. That is why we are not wasting points on cold damage nodes, because we just get so much more from clusters. So here, this is a very strong cluster because this gives us a lot of decks. Like the only reason I'm in this cluster and not in any of these other ones, like this is potentially stronger, is because I needed the decks. Like this gives way too much decks and it gives the increased effect of non-cursed aura, so this was the best one to take. And I can't take the 10% chance to inflict cold exposure on hit because the +1 level of all cold skill gem is just way better. Like you can't skip that. So that's there. So clusters, you only need primordial bond on all 3 clusters. You do not care what the other things are. You don't even want a passive here. You want this to be 2 passives, one being primordial bond on either this slot or this slot, and whatever trash on the other one. And the other things you can get on this are int is good, ES is good, res is good, dex is good, evasion is good, increased damage is good, and yeah. So primordial bond gives you all that extra golem buff effect. It also gives you 10% increased damage per summoned golem. That is why we are using summon golem with hordes, because this actually lets you summon 2 additional golems for free, completely for free. It doesn't count to your golem limit because it just has it written on the gem itself that it gives you maximum 3 of these golem types, which is an extra 2 compared to the other golem gems that gives you 1 golem. So this gives you an extra 3, but in reality, don't ask the math. It's 2, not 3. So you will summon 2 of these golems and 1 of all the other types. So I'm going to summon them now because it's almost the end, and you guys can bear hearing them running around behind in the background. So there you go. This will be your golem setup, 2 carrying golems. And if I try to summon the third one shows up, but then it deletes one of the other ones, and you don't want that. So you get an extra 30% damage per summoned golem. Not of a different type, just any per golem. Why do you get 30? Because all of these primordial bonds stack. So 10% here, 10% here, and 10% here. So that's 30% increased damage per summoned golem. So I'm getting 30, 60, 90, 120, 180, and another one, 210% increased damage from primordial bonds. Not to mention the 40% increased golem effect. So that's that. So all of those are exactly that same thing. All the cluster do the exact same thing. Primordial bond and some other good stuff on the side. Primordial bond and other good stuff on the side. Tips. Besides that, now we're going to talk about the smaller clusters and medium clusters. So small cluster, we do need 1 spell suppression cluster with untouchable. It's not hard to craft. It's very easy. It's very common, very high weightage. Don't worry about it. Very easy to craft these, and also very easy to craft the primordial bond clusters too. So easy peasy. Just get untouchable, and I just kept rolling on this until I hit tier 1 tier 1 yes, I mean. So good stuff. Besides that, the hard part, the part that you can't craft, are the Megalomaniacs. So many of these exist on trade with the desired mods on them that you're going to be able to find these. So don't worry about not being able to find it. But the ones that you need, the most important one is going to be this one, plus 10% chance to block attack damage while at maximum endurance charges, and it also gives you 20% chance to gain an endurance shot when you block. This and road reinforcement, 20% chance to gain an endurance shot when you block, and 6% chance to block attack damage, and there's one more that gives you block chance and an endurance charge when you block. So all 3 of these can be an option. You do need this one, and then one of the other 2. And then you need 1 10% suppression one and 1 8% spell block one, right? And you can get these in any order. It can be Enduring Ward with Elegant Form, or it can be Enduring Ward with Conjured Wall, and it can be Elegant Form with Road Reinforcement, or Elegant Form with the other one. Some form of these will work, and don't worry, I'll have a trade link with all these modifiers in them, and you just go in there, you pick and choose whatever's the cheapest and whatever one you find. More of these pop up on trade all the time, so don't worry about it. This is how we are capping our spell block and our attack block and our suppression. So it's way too important to ignore. However, if you're someone who's a psychopath and you don't care about damage, you can just go for pure damage mods over here instead. So it's to you. Besides that, we have a CB immune jewel. It's pretty simple. Let's get a CB immune jewel with 3% chance to block attack damage. This is what fully caps us out in the end at 75 attack block. Right now it's 65 at maximum endurance charges thanks to the notable. It goes up to 75 attack block and 75 spell block when I cast a spell. So this is huge. This is where so much of a tank comes from. So don't ignore this. Otherwise, if you don't block something and you get hit too many times, you die. And because of our shield, you're not blocking, you're not recovering. If you're not recovering, you die. So that is everything for the past. Oh, wait. Two forbidden jewels. Two forbidden jewels. There is Frigid Wake allocated on these jewels. It is a occultist mod. This gives you 15% more damage, immune to freeze and chill, and makes chilled enemies deal 10% reduced damage. Very, very good. However, if these run out, I think there's like 20 to 30 of these on trade. They're very cheap. All of them are 2D each. So see, these are combined like 4 diff. If these run out, if you can't buy these anymore, what do? Well, pretty simple. You just take this instead for freeze immunity, and then you just put some damage jewels here instead. That's it. An example of a good spicy damage jewel. This one. It's minions deal increased damage, percent increased maximum ES, cold damage over time multiplier. A pretty decent jewel right there. Also, if someone doesn't know, this is why we're using minion damage, because increasing introduction to minion damage also affect you. So we deal more damage for any extra minion damage that we have. Our golems do not deal any damage. They deal negligible damage. Their damage is non-existent. It's all just us. And Zealot's Oath, this is how we are applying our life regen to our energy shield. That's it. So that is everything. That's passive tree. That is the gems. The Ascendancy is very straightforward. Liege of the Primordial. Obviously, we're a golem build. We need this. Mastermind of Discord. This makes it so we have an extra minus 25% exposure, and we'll regen 1% of our mana if we've inflicted exposure recently, and we will always be inflicting exposure while we're mapping, as long as we are recently casting Frostbite and Temp Chains, mostly Frostbite. And then Heart of Destruction, this gives us 60% increased AoE while we don't have Convergence, and 30% more elemental damage when we hit a unique enemy. So this lasts 4 seconds, and it happens every 8 seconds. So you hit a unique boss, for 4 seconds you deal 30% more damage, and for 4 seconds you don't, and then for 4 seconds again you do. So it cycles back and forth, but 30% more damage. It's very, very useful. However, if you don't want to use this, you can instead opt for Shaper of Flames, Shaper of Winter, or Shaper of Storms. Either of these will do. However, not Shaper of Storms, by the way, because Bastion of Elements, we do not use this. This is irrelevant. This is not what we use. The only reason I'm using this is because I've been farming Abyss, Risk Scarabs, and I take this to avoid taking reflected elemental damage as one of the modifiers. However, if you're not using Risk Scarabs, if you're farming something else, and you can actually see what monsters are on your map, then you can take this off and you go for Shaper of Storms instead. It's a massive damage, massive boost to your damage, so it's really, really nice to have. It will always shock for 27%. It says 25 here, but thanks to an extra 10% effect of lightning ailments, this goes up to a minimum of 27%. Yeah. Besides that, Shaper of Flames, you can take this if you want. You can remove this and take this. This will make you very, very, very tanky, because the thing that deals damage to us in maps is mostly fizz damage anyway. We can take this, but I never felt like I needed it. I just took Shaper of Storms and it was just so much more damage. Shaper of Winter is also more damage, but this is only more damage if you can raise your chance to chill up to 40%. And you can't really do that because we're not taking any chill effect nodes, except for like, I think this one. No, not even this one. No chill effect, no increased effect of ailments. That is why our chill just sits at 27%. So that's that. Quick note about the Pantheons now, because we're done with everything else. I use Soul of Solaris. This gives you crit immunity, kind of, because you get hit so often during maps. If you take one crit, then you just don't take crits anymore. So I tested this with those tier 17 monsters that fire those lightning balls. Um, and I put a massive crit mod on those, and I went and I stood in those balls, and I died. And with Soul Solaris, I stood in those balls, and my health bar didn't even move. So those things hit like 1,000 times a second, and they deal 1,000 crits per second. But if you take this, you take only one crit, and then you stop taking crits. So it's very, very nice to have. It also makes it so you have a 20% chance to take 50% less area damage, and that's very, very nice because most slams are physical damage and they are area damage. So you have a 20% chance to just mitigate most of it. So that's everything. That is literally everything. It's just so long, so insanely long. So yeah, there you go. Now I'm going to go over the crafting and the POB. So the config, I'm going to go over this very, very quickly. This is all of the Merc's gear. That is why you see all these things written in config. This is the Merc's gear. So the Grace Aura effect is the shield and the Shaper's Seed implicit. And you can turn this up to 55% if you're using the unique ring with the aura implicit, web chest armor, and all that stuff. And also runes. So we do use 2 different runes. And the POB doesn't really show these runes. So you can see this says Rune Graph of the Fortress, but it doesn't show it. It shows this as the passive skill. So this is the rune that gives you 40% increased global defenses and 10% reduced attributes. So that one there, you can put these anywhere, but just put these on masteries that you don't use. So we don't use any minion ones. I'll put it over here. Same thing over here. This is gain 1 Val Soul per second. This is why we can have almost full uptime on Val Cold Snap on bosses, because we just get 1 soul per second. So that is why Val Cold Snap is enabled for bosses, because thanks to this one rune, we can actually have Val Soul uptime. That is why we also don't use Val Discipline, so that all the Val Souls we gain only go into Cold Snap and nothing else. And when you are doing any sort of BIS farming, then you will take out that 1 Val Soul per second, and you will instead take 20% chance to open nearby chests. This makes the BIS farming very, very easy. So yeah, you will unspec the Val Soul and you spec into this, and once you're done with that, you can spec out of that and spec back into your Val Soul generation. So besides that, there's nothing else to talk about. There's some tattoos over here for fire res. If you overcap on your fire, over limit yourself on strength, you can change one of your tattoos for fire res or life regen or a chance to block attacks, but you're already capped on chance to block attacks, so you don't need it. Same thing with dex. If you overcap on dex, you can use your dex nodes for cold res or cold damage or movement speed or suppression or evasion rating, even though most of these are insanely expensive. So that's up to you. Do not replace your int nodes unless you absolutely have to. But yeah, that's all there is for that. The rest of these configs are very, very normal. You will always see these. The enemy is always chill. The enemy is always shocked. We'll always have a flask active. We'll always have endurance charges. We'll always have frenzies for bosses thanks to the worm rings. We'll always have conversions for bosses. Well, not always, but most of the time. We'll always be casting spells. We'll always be on our own consecrated ground thanks to zealotry. We'll always be stationary for at least 1 second while we're using our spells. One quick note, I do not have Grace enabled here, because if you put on Grace, it does put you negative into your elemental, into your mana, but this is our Merc's Grace. It's around level 16, so that gives us an extra, like, massive hit pool with that evasion versus without it. We have like a 3 million effective hit pool. Obviously, that's not real. That's just POB numbers. Our actual hit pool, like for Fizz, is 20%, and blah, blah, blah. That's everything. And here you can check your Flask uptime. So you can see here, I have 100% Flask uptime in this setup. But if I was to change this down to like 27%, now it says 90% Flask uptime. So that's not right. If I go up to 44%, that's 100. If I go up to like 41, still 100. I think that's because I don't know why it's not. Well, it's 100. Congratulations. Let's see if it's like 40, 43, 38. Now you see it's 98%. So you need that to be 100, because if it's not 100 and this flash falls off while mapping, then that hurts. So you can check this. You can see exactly how much you need based on your belt craft, and you can engage in that way. So that's everything. That is all. I finally covered it all. You can see this is not, the wand here is different. The helmet here is the Archdemon crown, and everything else is the same. That's all. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. But that is done for the guide. That's everything. I think this is like 30 minutes now, 40 minutes. It's very long. But now I'm going to go over the crafting. So I'm going to see you all in the Craft of Exile page. Bye. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to go over this very quick because I just know that this is like an hour long. Oh no, I didn't want this to be this long. But anyway, so I will have a trade link for every single item that you need to buy, like so that you don't have to go like freak out on how to get this. So first things first is going to be the cheap helmet. So you're going to go in here and you're just going to look for any helmet with these implicits on it. So socketed projectile gems is not good. It's bad because this doesn't affect your cold snap. But you can search for 2 of these and maybe you'll get lucky and you'll, like this for example, this is golden because this gives you +4 because cold snap has AoE, duration, and cold. Those are the 3 tags. Same thing for Creeping Frost, but Creeping Frost has projectile as well. So this is that, but this is too expensive. If I go over here and I go any, it's just doesn't exist, right? So that's why you just click on 1, you remove projectile gems, and then you go about it this way. Then you just pick any one of these. Try to pick one that has the highest amount of ES, so that you can then use a corrupted, tainted, or armor scrap to convert this ES into more ES. You can go up to 151. That's what I've done for mine. So yeah, there you go. So 50C. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just get the baseline one for 5C. You don't have to like get the highest one, but anyway. So there's that. I'm gonna put that back in there. And then if you don't want to do that, then the other thing is going to be the Archdemon Crown craft. So you go to this trade link, you pick up one of these Archdemon Crowns, try to get one with the highest base percentile, just because like you want to have the highest amount of ES that you can possibly get from the base. So get one of these, and then you get an Elder Helmet with this modifier on it, level 20 concentrated effect. It's 5C. The base doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Just pick one. The base percentile doesn't matter either. Nothing matters. Just pick one. Then you go over to Craft of Exile. Well, you don't go over to Craft of Exile. You go over to your game. I'm going into Craft of Exile. I'm going to Strength Int. You grab your Archdemon Crown. Do this. So this is your Archdemon Crown, right? You slam this with a Shaper Orb. Boom. Then you go into Reforge. Reforge Cold. And you keep hitting this until you hit, what is it? Hypothermia, right? So I think we have hypothermia here. So you keep on hitting this. It's very cheap. So 16. We want 20 only. So here we hit level 20. So however, you want hypothermia to be the only shaper mod. How do you check? Well, you hold Alt on the item and you can see if it says shaper or in game, it'll say of shaping. Then it's a big no-no. You try to annul. You don't hit. You go to the Reforge bench again. And this is Reforge. This is like 1C or barely 1C per click. So it's not expensive. You can just keep on doing this. Or you can alteration spam. Do this easier. But this is faster. So here we go. It's only one sheeper mod now. It's just this. And this is done. And then you take your Elder base. Sorry, you all had the correct things open on them, but Craft of Exile resets them for some dumb reason. So here we get our bed. Here we get our helmet. Any base at all in the universe. You take it, you alch it, you have your Elder base, right? So I'm just gonna go right in here. We bought this base directly like this, so we don't have to do anything specific. We just need conk effect here. Remove this. Add conk effect. Here we have our conk effect. So now we just take this and we're gonna take an Awakener Orb. And the way Awakener Orbs work is you right-click the Awakener Orb, you left-click the item you want to destroy first, and then you left-click on the item that you want the orb to happen to awaken, to the base to use. Right. So in this case, you will click on the Elder base first, and then you will click on your Shaper base. So boom, you do that and you get something like this. So here we have hypothermia, the conk effect, And we have a random prefix and a random suffix. We don't care about what the suffixes are, don't care what the prefixes are. So on this, and here we did get a open prefix for our craft for a regems. Go over here, craft this on, you're done. Here there is an open suffix, so you can exhaust time, see what you get. You got mana per second, translations, you can get res, you can get something, some random garbage, it doesn't really matter. So what happens if you fill up your suffixes? I mean, if you fill up your item. So if I ignore this again, here, okay. So here we have open suffixes, but no open prefix. So there's two things you can do. You can either YOLO or null, try to hit it, and I hit it, so that's great. But you can also, to sort of not have slightly higher chances, I guess, you can use a prefix to suffix Beastcraft. So here, this will make it so this can't be removed. Now you have a 33% chance. Right now, your chances are 2 and 4, which is 50-50. But with this, you have a 1 in 3 chance. So do this, you lose. You do it again, right? So if you lose, it sucks. But most of the time, like you can see here, like almost always you win. Sometimes you lose. But ideally, you want to win on the Awakener Orb, so that the moment you awaken it, put this in, you awaken, and you get your open prefixes. Like here, it's 2 open prefixes, so that's great. But yeah, so there's your helmet. It's completely done, and then you just use the helmet. So that out of the way, helmet done. Next up, gloves. So gloves are very, very easy. So you want to have a int base, warlock base, item 84, begin. Here, here's the trade. Get a base, warlock gloves, item 84. Try to get a base with high quality if you can afford it. Because let's say if we want like a 25% quality warlock base, it does go up pretty quickly. And don't get one with a bad fracture on it. Get one with no fracture, like this one, for example. 3 div. This one here, 3.5 div. Getting extra quality is a massive boost to the overall ES that you will get in the end. So keep that in mind. But it's not necessary, but it's very, very good to have. But if you're broke, if you can't get it, then just go for a cheeky 0 quality and just quality it up yourself. So now what you do, you have your base. What do you do? Well, you go over your essences, you grab your essence of woe, and then you keep on hitting this essence. Literally just keep hitting it until you see a very high number of ES on above the item. So here you can see that I hit tier 1% ES and rarity. So that's fine. It's completely okay, but we need 1 open suffix. So we will just be using an Eldritch Annul to annul that and be done. Now, I guarantee that you will be able to craft whatever item you want to craft out of all of the items within 50 essences. So here I did in 2. Right, 2, and then you use a Eldritch Lesser Blue Ichor to make it Eater World dominant. Then you go Eldritch Annul, and you annul one thing, and then you just craft on Suppression, and then you're good to go. That is it. Or you can then use Eldritch Chaos Orbs to reroll your suffixes until you there's tier 1 int, tier 2 fire res. That's great, and then you just have to remove this 1 bad suffix, try to remove it. There you go, you removed it, and boom, there you go. You have an insane pair of gloves with tier 1 int, tier 2 res, and insane ES. So yeah, there. However, let's say you don't get lucky with 2 essences. How many more may you need? Well, let's keep going and see. I'm just looking at the ES number. Oh, so here again, it's decent ES. It's like 240 ES, but you can make it better. So we go for more. There we go. There's another one. So here it's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 2 hybrid with tier 2 lightning res. And how many essences was that? 19 essences. And each essence is like 3C. So way under 50 essences, way under a div. This was like barely 30 to 40C worth of essences. No, like 60 to 80C worth of essences. So gloves, there you go. And then you just craft on Suppression. You need 6%. There you go. Done. Gloves, boom. Gloves done. Next up, boots. Exactly the same way as we just did the gloves, you will be doing the same thing with your boots. However, there is a slightly different thing that you can do for your boots that I'm going to show right here. So first of all, exact same thing. Go and buy a base. Don't get a bad fracture. Get a good fracture. If you can get higher quality, get higher quality. and then you come over here, go over to your base, you go over to your essences, and then you have two options. Either you go for woe again, and you just slam on woes, or you can instead also go for zeal and get like 32% movement speed with zeal. I do not recommend this because this means you need to roll for 2 high tier ES modifiers, which is going to be very, very difficult to do. So instead, use woe until, well, there you go, until this. Use woe until you get some good ES and an open prefix. So here we don't have an open prefix. What do? In this case, we have a very good suffix, int, and we don't want to remove that. So instead, we're going to use an Eldritch null again, but this time we're going to have exarch dominance that we remove a prefix, and then let's hope we remove mana. We didn't remove mana, unfortunate. Here we remove mana. So in this case, when you do remove the mana, you will then craft on movement speed, movement. You will craft that on. You will craft on movement speed and onslaught. So you craft this, and then you will exhaust slam this twice for your suffixes. Here we got tier 1 res and a bad one. But there you go, done. Let's say it didn't take you again like 7 essences. Let's try this again. How many essences will it take? Looking at the ES number. Well, there you go. You got 30% movement speed, tier 1 ES, and tier 1 this. You don't even have to do anything else here. You can just craft on a res, or you can craft on ailment. You can actually craft on increased effect of ailments now. This is a massive boost in damage, by the way, because this does increase your shock effect. So you can craft on this, you can craft on res. If you're missing some res, you can do a lot of stuff. So there you go. Again, barely 11. We get it twice, just to prove it again to people who are like, oh, you're just too lucky. Oh, no. But there. That's 3 back to back to back. If you rewind the footage, that was 3 different ones that were up to 300 ES. This is literally more ES than the booth I have. So there you go. Like again, tier 1 ES, tier 1 res, open prefix for movement speed, and an open suffix for some shenanigans. Right, there you go. Boots done. Body armor. Now this is gonna be the hard one. This is gonna be the hard one. This is gonna be the hard one. So here we go dex int, we go necrotic armor, we go whatever item level here. Again, this one, go for high quality. If you're gonna spend any currency for a higher quality base, get it for a necrotic armor, because this base is gonna give you the most ES and evasion out of all the other items. So even 1 extra % of quality is gonna be big. And here you can get up to like 24-25% for like 450C. And a high base percentile as well. But if you're going to do this, get like a 27-28% quality for like 2-3 div, and then raise the base percentile yourself with Sacred Orbs. That'll be cheaper than buying a high base percentile one by default. So get that. Once you have that, you go over here. Now you have options. You can either dense fossil craft this if you want, but dense fossils end up getting expensive, and I don't really prefer them for this specific craft, for this specific build, because we want more ES than we do evasion. So we use essences of woe. So you keep on woeing until you see some high ES numbers like this one. So here it's tier 1 ES from the essence, tier 1 hybrid, and then some random suffixes, but we can do better than this. So this will be where you splurge your essences and you just keep on going and keep on going and just keep on going until you hit some very, very high numbers. So I'm going to keep on going on this and see how many it takes. We hit this. This can get unlucky sometimes. This is going to be where you spend more currency anyway. So get a good one. Because if you get a good one here, you can keep it for the rest. So here, this is tier 1, tier 4. You can settle with this. This is pretty good. Because that's tier 4 of the smaller hybrid. So this is a very, very easy spot to settle on. That's like 696 ES almost. So that's very, very big. And that took me how many essences? Let's see, 150 essences. That is around 3 div worth of essences, I think. Still very worth it. 3 div worth of essences, very worth it. Let's see how many it might take to get. Oh, there you go. Boom. Tripled tier 1. There you go. So that can be a potential thing that you can get. So keep your options open, go for this, and then you can tailoring all of this to make this go up to almost like 100 or like 780 ES or something. Very, very nice. And then the harder part. So now you need 16% suppression. So this is where it gets a little bit painful, because now you need to use Eldritch Chaos Orbs to do this. So you need to reroll your suffixes. So you don't need that. You need a lesser ichor, and then you just have to click on this for a little bit. Oh, see this? Not enough. You have to keep on going, and keep going, painfully, very painfully, keep going until you hit 18 suppression. Now this can get very expensive. As you can see, I've been clicking this for a while and I haven't even seen. There you go. I got it in 55 Eldritch Chaos Orbs. It takes like, it's like 5 for 1 div. So that's 11 div. That's not ideal, obviously. That is not okay, and that is way too expensive. So what's the alternative? The alternative is that while you're using your low essences, you stop when you see good suppression. So if I see here, oh, 8, not enough. Keep going. Oh, again, 22, but very bad prefixes, so I go again. So instead of trying to get triple tier 1 prefixes, you try to get good prefixes and suppression in the suffix. So that was decent. That was 16. You can go again here. This is technically 16, but bad prefixes. Here again, 9. Right, so you keep doing that until, so here again, bad prefixes. Actually, this isn't that bad because you can craft on % increased ES, and that'll be good to go. So you get the point. You get how to make it. This will be hard. You can just buy one off of trade if you want to with a good amount of ES and a minimum of 16 suppress. So if you want to do that, do that. If you want to craft it yourself, craft it yourself. To you. So body armor done. Ring, the simplest one out of all of them. Get a fractured base. Again, I recommend getting a fractured strength base. ES would be cheapest. Strength would be a little bit more expensive. If you go over here and I check for fractured strength, it is 25C for strength, 30C, 35C, 40C. But yeah, once you have your fractured strength base, then it's very easy. Go take spite essences and then keep on. Well, there you go. That's basically it. That is tier 3 ES, but if you want better ES, you can keep going, and there you go. Tier 1 ES, but it does have fire res, and you don't want a res. I mean, yeah, you don't want res. You have to know that. Boom, missed. Go again. Because you do want an open suffix, because you may not need the open suffix, but it will help you a lot to fix up your attributes in the end. So we're gonna keep on going until I see ES again. Oh, I saw ES. Tier 10 ES, you. Tier 5, nope. Tier 8, no. So you get the general gist of this. All right, so let's just go for one more ES roll. There you go, tier 2. Have a suffix again. You annul, hit ES, annul again. There you go. You can also do the Beastcraft on this for suffix to prefix. That'll give you better chances instead of it being like bad. There you go. You hit it. Didn't hit. You didn't hit. You hit. You didn't hit. You hit. No. So you get the point, and then you craft an attribute and your ring is done. Ring done. Amulet. So Amulet is gonna be the hard part. You can either just buy one with fractured level of all cool skills, and then you use an essence to get int, and then you just craft on. You use an essence to get yes, and then you keep on doing that until you hit int and res, and then you just fix it up. However, if you want the good one, you get a base with like this. So this search specifically, only one prefix, and the one prefix is level of all spell skills. You get that. You go and you use a bestiary craft to split the base. So you will craft another prefix onto this base, and you go to the bestiary, and you will use a split beast, and that'll split the item into two items. One item will have the level of all spell skills prefix, and the other one will have the craft prefix, and random assortment of these suffixes. But the main thing would be that this prefix is isolated. So I'm going to show you what that is going to look like and what to do after that. So you have your amulet. I would recommend going for a mana regen one or a dex hit one. So you have this with level of all spell skills like this, and random suffixes like this and whatever this, right? So let's say this is your item. Your suffixes will never be full. You'll always have one open suffix. So first thing you do would be prefixes cannot be changed. And then you will do a scour. That happens, that's bad, right? No. So that would be the first thing to do, but you cannot do that. So instead, what you'll be doing is you cannot remove all of these. You can instead do this, and you can regal it, and then you get something like this. But then again, your prefix is full, and then you have to clear it again. So that's not ideal, but that is what you'll have to do. If you don't want to do that, it'll get needlessly expensive. You do have like 50-50 to hit a suffix. So there you go. Do not augment it. Don't augment it. Just directly regal and hope that you don't hit a prefix. But yeah, once you, let's say you get it, but since the bases are super cheap and the split beast is super cheap, even if you miss this, you can just go again. And you go again until you have this as your base. One suffix and one prefix. What do you do after this? Now you go, can have up to 3 graphic mods. Prefixes cannot be changed. And then you craft on gold damage to attacks. This element will be whatever element that you're trying to make a +2 of. This build is +2 cold. If you're a fire build, this can be +2 fire, it can be +2 whatever. So you do that, and then you go over to your harvest bench. You go add, remove, not reforge, add and remove cold. This costs 15,000 juice and 1 sacred life force. Sacred life force is like 40C. Juice, 15,000 juice are roughly like 3 div worth of juice. And then add, remove, cold. Boom. This is a guaranteed, deterministic, foolproof way to get yourself +1 to level of all cold skill gems. You always get this no matter what happens. So there you go. That's done. And then you go and you remove crafted mods. So you can't do that here. So you remove your crafted mods. And then you do it again. So can have up to 3 crafted mods. And then you put on % increased ES. Crafted version. So there you go. % increased ES. You can't change, you can't recraft it. So if you hit a low roll, well, sad. And then the suffix. Now this suffix can be anything. It can be dex int, it can be raw int, it can be resistances. It just needs to be whatever you need for your build that's missing from your other item. So for me, nothing was really missing. So I just went ahead and I crafted dex int and I called it a day. Boom. So there you go. How Amulet is done. You anoint this and it's perfect. Okay, now weapon. Very quick. You go get yourself a fracture level of all cold spell skills. Scepter, only scepter or a wand. So go follow this trade and you find it. Then you will very quickly just spam essences. You will spam minion damage essences because they're cheaper. You can spam bow essences for spell damage, but they're more expensive. Minion damage ones are the cheapest. So if this is your base right here, go ahead and do this. You have your essence, you grab your minion damage essence, which I think is feared, and then you keep, oh, there you go. First click, you want to get this into damage over time multiplier, and that's it. And then you just craft on cold damage over time multiplier on the suffix, and you're good to go. Let's see how many tries it takes me to get that. It's not the first one. So here it is, damage over time multiplier. You can also get cold damage over time multiplier. That's one of the options. So whatever you hit, it's good. So I'm gonna keep clicking until, there we go, I hit it here. Tier 5, tier 5 isn't that good, so we're gonna keep going. Here it is again, tier 5 again. You will keep on going. Oh, we get cooldown over that multiplier. Tier 5 again, so no. So you can see like the weightage of this isn't very high. Here we hit tier 1, but we hit tier 1, but everything else is full. If it's full, try to annul and hope for the best. I annulled minion damage. That's sad. I'll go again. Here we go. I annulled the fire damage. Go again. I annulled the minion damage. Go again. I annulled the minion damage. Go again. I annulled something bad. But there you go. You get the point. Hit dot multi, then craft cold dot multi, and you're done. Super good wand, right there and then. Good for you, right? So that's the weapon done. Very simple. Shield. You get yourself a titanium spirit shield with over quality, like 26% quality of this is very, very cheap. So just get 26% quality with and raise the base percentile up yourself. Then once you have that, you go over and you will be using streaking essences of loathing. Very important. You will be using shriekings, not deafenings. And the reason for that, I'll explain. But first, when you get the base, you will need to use a shaper orb. Do not forget to use your shaper orb. There was a time I was trying to craft this, and I was like, why am I not hitting the mod? I didn't use my shaper orb first. So, shaper orb here, and then you will use your loathing essences. Thing is, if you use a loathing essence, you'll see it's not really raising this block number, but the point is that when you have 72% increased chance to block, it's not that much different as 67% chance to block. It still gives you 41 to 42% chance to block, which is the same thing. We need a bare minimum of 41, and we can get that through shriekings. So this makes the cost way cheaper to do this. We use shriekings, not deafenings of loathing. So here we are. Now we're going to go over and keep spam clicking until we hit recover ES when you block. So this will take a few attempts. This might cost you more than 50 essences, depending on how lucky or unlucky you are. Sometimes you can go like a long periods of time without seeing it. Like here, I went through a lot of essences, but I finally 89 essences. But I hit spell damage, mana, 5% chance to recover, 5% ES on block, all res, and this. The unfortunate part of this is I need one open suffix. So I need to annul. There you go. I annul the bad suffix. You can craft suppression here, and you're done. However, you can keep going on this. You can. If you really want to, you can keep going until you hit good prefixes as well. But only do this if you have the currency to do this. With this, you can end up spamming this for a long time because this modifier has a very low weightage compared to all the other ones. So it gets very, very annoying. Especially when you hit the wrong one, you can hit gain mana when you block. So here, this is low tier ES, some fire res, and it has an open prefix and an open suffix. So in this case, you don't want that suffix to fill up. So you'll craft on the suffix that you want. This is suppression. You want max tier of this. And then your exhaust time is your hit. Life is terrible. Spell damage is okay. Block spell damage is if you can hit this. Okay, big moment to talk about. If you hit chance to block spell damage on one of your prefixes, you can change one of your Megalomaniac nodes into something else. It's a big change. So if you hit this, keep this. But yes, so that's the shield also done. You need nothing else on it. So there you go. Belt. Get yourself a crystal belt. And then you will use so here, crystal belt. You use a Crusader orb to give it Crusader influence. And then you use essences of woe until you hit one of these two Flask mods. Here I've hit the Flask mod, but I also want percent increased ES. So we keep on hitting this until we hit the Flask mod and one of the ES mods. So here, nope. Here, nope. Here, nope. Here, nope. Here, no. Here, no. This may take some time, depending on how fast you can look, because you do have to stop and check for both different modifiers. And that can get a little bit annoying sometimes as you're trying to craft this. You can get one off of trade as well if you want to, but I recommend not doing that. So here we go. We got it right here. So this is increased flask effect duration and high tier of res, but it's not a high enough tier of flask effect duration. What do you do then? Because you can't craft flask charges gained. That is not one of the things that you can craft. You can only craft reduce flask charges gained, not increase flask charges gained. So what do you do in this case? Well, in this case, you will convert one of your dexterity nodes on your passive tree. So let's say this one right here, there is a tattoo for flask effect duration. So you can just put this tattoo in, boom, and that'll help bring you up to where you need to be. So if I copy this item, for example, and I go into the POB and I put this item in, and I add it to the build, and then I check, is this enough? Let's see. Belt, new belt, check the flask, 99% flask uptime, so it's not enough. What do you do if it's not enough? You can do two things. You can either divine your belt, because you can see here this is a low roll. You can divine it to make it into a high enough roll to be able to fit it in, or if you have enough dex, which hopefully you will have enough dex to convert two of your dex nodes into this, and then boom, there you go. That will be enough for your flasks to have 100% uptime. So this cost me 73 essences to get to this point. And then this does have an open suffix. So you can craft on dex and int here, thanks to that open suffix. And then boom, there you go. You have dex and int. That should give you enough dex to do your to convert your tattoos, and then you just use an exalted orb on the open prefix here, get some absolute garbage that you don't need anyway, and then call it a day. So belt is done. Cluster jewels very, very quickly. This is like a 2-hour video. Holy shit. My voice is dying, everything is dying. I'm going to go over this very, very quickly. Get yourself a large medium damage cluster. 8 passive only. Do not go up into level 84. Highest level 83, minimum 68. You get that base? What do? You go to your harvest bench, you go reforge life, and then you just keep on doing that until you hit primordial bond. So reforge life, and keep on going until you hit primordial bond. Here it is, primordial bond, but you need this with another passive on it. Otherwise, it goes all the way to the end. So keep clicking, keep clicking. There you go. Primordial bond, no other passive. Go again. Primordial bond, no other passive. Go again. Oh, primordial bond, no other passive. Primordial bond, no other passive. This is unfortunate. Primordial bond, no other passive. Primordial bond, and feasting fiend. There you go. So something like this, and then you can exhaust plan for the last prefix if you want to. There you go. So you'll take this, you'll put it into your POB, and you'll check if this works. You'll put it into your character's passive tree, check if it works. If it does not work, you will go and you click on Reforge again. You can get roughly around 100 clicks per divine, because one divine gets you 6,500 juice, and each Reforged life costs 75 juice. So that's like a little under 100 juices, a little under 100 Reforges. So there you go. You can get this. This is pretty unlucky. It took me like 93, and I was constantly hitting Primordial Bond, but I just wasn't hitting one of the other mods along with it. There you go. You can also keep going. This is relatively cheap to do. One click is like barely anything. So you can keep on going with this until you get some like ES or int or dex or strength or something good on this. But there you go. There's the large cluster done. Then the small suppression cluster. You pick one from this trade. You go over here. I hate how my Craft of Exile keeps resetting itself. But there you go. You go over here. And same thing. Harvest Reforge events. So you go over here. Reforge life. Because we are Reforge defense, I mean. Because Untouchable, the one that we want, is a defense one. And we also want ES, which is also defense. This doubles down. And we keep on hitting this until we get, we got Untouchable, and we got a tier 1 roll of Dex and a tier 3 roll of Int. This is a keep. This is a big keep. But if you don't want that, if you want to go again, or if you didn't hit it in the first one, you keep on going until you hit Untouchable. There you go, hit it. with mana and lightning res, you pull more, you get cold res decks, you hit it again. Like it's very, very easy to hit this over and over again. So you can do that. This is ES and Dex, very big. So there you go. That is everything. That is everything. That is all of it. One last note is the flasks. This is the trade link for the flasks. You don't have to craft these yourself. It'll cost you a lot of time and alteration orbs to craft this yourself. So instead of doing that, just go and buy the main one, which is charge recovery and additional elemental resistances. And this will cost you anywhere from like 40 to 50C. You do have to check these flasks. So check for the Sapphire one. Sapphire flask is like 60. If you go and check the Topaz one, that's going to cost you like 40 to 50. If you go check the Ruby one, that'll cost you around like 40 to 90. Doesn't matter much. Also, the numbers of this charge recovery depend on how much you need based on your belt. So make your belt first, and then go check in the POB what the minimum number is. Put that minimum number in here, and then check. And then once you have your additional res one, then you can go and alteration spam to get your other ones. Just get a high amount of charge recovery, and then craft on your suffix. And the spell damage one is very, very cheap. You get a 50 charge recovery and a max spell damage leech for like 5C. So irrelevant. That is all. That is everything. I've been yapping for 2 hours now. I am dying. There you go. That is all. That is everything. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Join my Discord. Ask me there. I'm always around to answer any questions that you guys have. I answer all the comments. I answer all the things. Do all the YouTube stuff if you want to, if you feel like it. That is all. That is everything. Thank you all, and bye-bye.